following booming development in the emerging sharing economy in China, new problems are rising to the surface. Once touted as a symbol of China's sharing industry, OFO is trapped in a huge financial struggle and faces potential legal consequences. So does shared mobility still have a promising future? With increasing concern of issues such as safety and unreturned deposits, how can public trust be restored? And what are the prospects for the wider industry? To discuss these issues and more, I'm happy to be joined in the studio by Mr. Liu Zhiqing, Senior Fellow with Renmin University's Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies, and Mr. He Jing, Attorney at Anjie Law Firm. That's our topic. This is Dialogue. I'm Han Dong. Well, gentlemen, now the biggest attention on OFO is not about whether it's a sharing economy or not, or its business model. It's about those unreturned deposits. Millions of people are waiting to withdraw their deposits from this very company. Do you think there will be legal consequences, Mr.?
Of course, there will be, technically speaking, but practically speaking, it's not going to be easy for the users. There's a contractual relationship between the user and OFO, right? The user are entitled to get their deposit back. But think about it, there are millions of users waiting. And if you look at the contract, according to some of the reports, I have not seen myself, according to some report, there are actually arbitration clause between the user and the OFO. If the user wants to get the money back, and under the contract, they need to file arbitration, and they need to pay the arbitration fee, which is actually around $1,000 US. Which user would do that, right? So technically speaking, it's going to be hard.
So are you saying that this company is utilizing maybe loopholes or some vacuum in the legal system to gain profit from using deposits to develop their own business?
I don't know whether they're using loopholes or not, but I guess from the business model, predictably, they probably use some of the deposit, right, to fund the developments of the whole company. If you look at the government policy, there's guidelines. They're supposed to keep the deposit in a separate
but that's
account.
A guideline. That's not law.
That's not the law.
So what's wrong with this model, Mr.
I think there's no excuse to explain the mistake made by the OFO. From the very beginning, we have to say everybody knows that all the business doing in China should be abided by the law. So all these owners and managers of this company, they didn't pay any attention. There's nothing to do with the loophole, because loophole exists in every system, in every law countries. But all the people who are doing business, they should self-discipline to know what is wrong, what is right. If he doesn't know what is wrong, he has no right to do any business. This is a very basic law, so no need to explain this to everybody. Everybody should know that my action, my business should be beneficial to the society. If in different direction, should be punished, should be in legal system. So this is a legal sequence I think we should have followed it to solve this problem. Otherwise, the public trust cannot be restored.
So talking about bike sharing, what about OFO's biggest competitor, Mobike? Do you think they will face potential risks like this too?
I think so. All these business they have potential risks by doing so-called deficit business. Fundamentally, from the banking system, they have so-called guidelines, but the guidelines, in my opinion, there is something like a law. We cannot say guideline is not a law. They should have a power in the law system, but whether we can do it in the business according to the guideline, because the guideline from the banking that no deposit issued or operated by private companies, they should be granted by some authorities.
But the internet industry is much less regulated than the traditional banking industry.
No, internet regulator, they have already very tough regulation on this, especially by the illegal fundraising. This is something like illegal fundraising, but actually they have at the beginning.
No, they have been taken this to a much serious level. Do you agree, Mr.?
My own personal understanding is that China, I mean, in terms the government policy or the law, we have a fairly loose attitude. I think the starting point is that China want to encourage the development of the new, like especially the online industry. So there are actually government timely issues, all sorts of guidelines. I actually agree with Professor Liu that this part of it is business ethics. Okay, we have to distinguish between business ethics and the law. Okay, if the company knows that they misuse the deposit, they know that if they fail, they cannot return the refund. They cannot refund the deposit. That's an ethical issue, at least. Okay, legally speaking, each user is entitled to get the money back. They have this creditor's right. But answering your earlier question, the legal consequences, if the company is in big trouble, like a bankruptcy, they are the most vulnerable ones. Their creditor rights are pretty much at the end, at the bottom of the whole thing if there's ever a liquidation. Okay, maybe they'll get a bike back.
But are you saying that for those users who cannot get their deposits back, they should just, see their money vanish in vain?
That's predictable, in fact. If you're looking at if you think about from more better scenario, okay, I think it's probably the government or some kind of maybe the consumer associations need to be more proactive. In fact, from what I read, like Guangzhou, the Consumer Association, they actually filed a public interest lawsuit like last year against another much smaller like a shared bank, the company, to get some money back. Okay. But I know I'm very curious if any like association, consumer association, willing to file some kind of a public interest lawsuit against OFO, at least to secure some kind of funding for the millions of users.
So you're saying this is more of a challenge to the legislation work or the regulation or supervision work for the society or industrial associations?
Now, in hindsight, you will say yes. It's a challenge for everybody. Okay, especially for legislations. But if you're looking at from an industry policy point of view, probably some policymakers say, okay, I mean, 3 or 4 years ago when the Mobike, when OVO just started, people say, okay, let's watch how's it going. Seems everybody likes it. Seems that everybody thinks it's a great thing.
But you cannot keep watching, right? You have to do something about it as it develops so fast.
That's right. But for human world, right, we do not take action until there's a crisis. That's a very human being.
And you think it's universal?
I would just say it's a phenomenon.
Right. Let's get back to business basics. Do you think there is actually any business model in bike sharing?
Yes, I think so. But actually, we have to recall the real story of the sharing economy outside. At the very, very beginning, the meaning of sharing economy is that you put your unused products in the market to let the neighbors or your friends start to use it. This is what we call the sharing. That means it not occupy the social resources, especially not occupy all these international or national payments, or even using the deficit. This is something already different. That is this form of the sharing economy. So in this way, China's sharing economy should be redefined to make a right description. What is the real sharing economy?
So let's talk about what is the real sharing economy. It raises two crucial questions. Who shares what and at what cost? What about the first question?
Sharing economy, in my opinion, that we have to share the benefits. We have to share the interest. We have to share the convenience. No more.
We
do not share risks. No.
Individual or the persons, or you're talking about any community or entities?
Well, I just don't think we can really ever define this word sharing in vigorous term, right? It's a business term. It has a very loose meaning. Okay, it's a business phenomenon. It captures all sorts of business models. Okay, if you're looking at China and the U.S., right? If you compare Airbnb, or Uber, or Didi, you'll see that the business model quite different. Probably totally different. There's a distinction between the light app and versus the heavy app. It's very interesting that Chinese internet company tend to build very heavy apps. It's not just an app, right? They actually own the assets. They have all kinds of
Well, they call it
services.
ecosystem.
Yes, exactly. You know, they do financial payments, okay? They do all kinds of stuff, and advertisements, all sorts of things. But the US business model tend to be more focused. They're happy with the light app. So it's a different business environment. Now, from a legal point of view, you know, when we look at sharing, we're looking more at this underlying legal relationship. You know, who give money to what the contractual relationship. You know, in case of a dispute, who will do what. But right now, as I said, I mean, the Chinese laws tend to sort of give people more quote-unquote space to the internet companies. But when things happen like this, people realize, oh wow, we got a problem. Okay, they're really a general upset, right, by millions of users. I guess there will be reaction by the legislation or regulatory body. You know, something got to be done. But now, what's interesting is when the technology evolves, it will not be the share bikes. It will be something else. It will be totally something different. Now, how the law is going to deal with it? With the regulator jumping ahead first? Okay, that's still a much bigger question.
So do you think it's now the time for legislation to be involved, Mr. Li?
Absolutely. I think there's no time to waste anymore. So you see, the problem is already happened. Also, the disaster or the risk already happened to the user, the end user. It will disorder the social trust and the social order. So we have to solve this problem by legislation, especially by the law regulations. Well, my opinion that we should put criminal law in these activities. Anybody who violates not only the illegal financial regime, but also illegal activities, that they should put under the criminal circumstances. Otherwise, they feel no pressure, you see. So this is the point for Chinese the sharing economy. The owners, the manager, they are so brutal, they are so brutal that to expand their business, they don't care the consequence of the law. So this is why we call it, this is also something in China as consequences. So this is very dangerous for our economy. So I think the regulator should now join and should be involved in these activities.
Now let's talk about the other crucial question: at what cost? Earlier, Mr. He mentioned Airbnb, because usually you can rent out your own flat. That means you have the property right of this very flat. Do you think that may be close to the very definition, the ideal definition of sharing economy?
Sorry, I don't think this is something like or close to the sharing economy. This is 100 years ago, if I have a room free, I can rent you. This has nothing to do with the sharing economy. Sharing economy is modernized world and activity to cover all the risks and tricks that are used by some investors. Especially in China, the sharing economy already became some capital collector. This is more dangerous than anything, than any concrete product like a bike or like a car. Behind this, they collect the capitals from different investors. They make their own rich in the list, in the fortune list, but they don't care what other people losing. So this is the problem that are totally different from the sharing economy as it starts 100 years ago.
Give us an example. What do you think is the real economy? Give us one example.
The real sharing economy, that if we have the room free, or if we have car free, that we can put it in the market through an entrepreneur, a company to rent to the others. The rent must be very practical, very rational, not for the purpose of the earn money, just for the purpose of to serve the people, serve the society. This is totally different. Our sharing economy is to serve the capital, and the capital serve the owners. What are the users? We have to take more attention to protect all the end users and the customers' interests. This is totally different.
And Mr. He, talking about cost, what about the occupation of public interest and public goods and public spaces? For example, whether it's car sharing or bike sharing, you have to occupy some public spaces. Is there a legal dilemma in this particular sector?
I think this is something that the legal world has not been prepared for. Okay, especially in China, there's a lot of things that are not really tightly regulated. So that's why you saw all the dilemma, right? All this, the shared bikes are occupied this pedestrian streets, make things quite difficult. And of course, I can see that some of companies reacted by taking some extra labor to clean up those bikes, especially off the street. I just wonder whether that's sustainable or not. Okay, I think right now, given all the troubles, right, it's clear that the current quote-unquote sharing economy run into trouble. But I think at the same time, actually personally, okay, putting my lawyer's hat away, right, I'll be more interested if some of the sharing bikes company can survive. To be honest, it's really convenience, right? It's really have the benefits. Now they have troubles. They have some missteps. Okay, sometimes maybe they even have ethical issues. But ultimately, especially keep in mind, if something really delivers some success, wild success, held as a big successful, right? Even by all levels of the government in China, it has environmental benefit. We cannot kill it at all, right? We have to use powerful capital, but if we have with a better regulatory framework, even maybe the criminal law approach, make sure it's tightly regulated, and also the company can be thriving. So at least I want to make sure we still have shared bikes, whatever it's called, whether it's not shared bike or some company's bikes. We want those bikes to be available. People use that with accountability. The company run that with responsibility.
And gentlemen, we'll be continuing this right after this. You're watching Dialogue on CGTN. Stay with us. Well, gentlemen, we've talked a lot about current challenges and difficulties and even problems. Let's look ahead a little bit. Earlier, Mr. Liu, you mentioned that Airbnb is not something new. It's something, already happened a century ago. But do you think sharing economy, let's get a little bit narrow on this very concept. Do you think it's something that was incepted out of the development of information technology and the age of internet?
Yeah, I think the basic technology that used by the sharing economy is the internet or the information collection and information distribution. That make this business more convenient, and they can contact every person face-to-face, hand-to-hand. So this is a very easy way to make a profit. This is why all these companies that are joining this business. But actually, we must pay attention that whether this company and business is really focused on the social equality, social stability, and social progress. If this go in different direction or have different consequences, we must, I think, withdraw from this direction. Actually, another point I have to say that everything is decided by the degree, how expanded you go. Our sharing economy is developed too fast, too extreme. Everything, if you put it in the necessary degree, that means demand and the supply is almost equal. There were not big problem. But nowadays, our supply is larger than demand. That will have more troubles, more risky. So put it everything, the business within a national degree that is more safe for the society, for the business itself.
But if it's really for public good, then should it be a public service? For example, you like shared bikes a lot because it solved the so-called last mile problem.
Exactly.
Right? But shouldn't that be a part of the public service?
Yes, it should, right? But we cannot blame a government for not doing this job. Sometimes private, sector can do some work much more efficiently. That's normally the universal truth. Okay, to some extent, it's actually you have to give a lot of credit to some of the sharing companies, either Uber, Didi, or Mobike. They have done something wonderful. Okay, of course, it causes problems. Now, I actually really want to go back to what Professor Liu said. I think I think that's something to do with the business ethics. Okay, the internet is powerful. The online service is actually powerful. It reaches billions of people. Okay, literally speaking.
Right.
Now, it actually really requires this large internet company, even emerging small internet companies. And Mobike was small, but over the night it become very big. But that really requires the owner, the operator of the company have a much higher standard of ethics, at least, okay, before law kicks in. Law is always lagging behind, to be honest. You cannot rely on the lawyers jumping up so quickly, okay? Well, normally the bottom line holder. So the ethics is a big issue. I think our Chinese entrepreneurs and the government need to work together. We have to look at the business, ethics, to make sure people really operate with accountability instead of waiting for disaster, waiting for crisis to happen. Because once the public trust is lost, it creates a much bigger problem for the next round of entrepreneurs.
Right.
Okay? Because sometimes the government overreact.
Yeah.
If people really angry about it, they impose a much tougher standard or even criminal approach. It's actually maybe have an impact on the next round of innovation efforts.
Right.
So we have to be really mindful about it. So this is not a small question. It's not an easy question, right? It requires a lot of discussion, serious discussion about accountability, ethics, and the law. Okay, you don't really want to overly tight regulations, to be honest, because the technology evolves so quickly. Now we're talking about the data. Let's
talk about data, right? Because another big concern on ethics for any company utilizing the so-called big data is, the very privacy and the data security of individual users. Do you think they're in safe hands right now if, the sharing economy is to continue to boom?
The answer is no, right? If you even think about the deposit, if some of our best entrepreneurs in China cannot even handle depositing the right way, now think about the data, okay? Data is very, very useful, okay? Now,
and it's intangible, much more difficult to control physically.
And also from a business point of view, from a technology point of view, you also want the data to be collected, to be used by the right technology. Then you can develop the first rate, like AI technology. That's what really every government's looking at, relying on. But if you do not have the right data, you forget about it, okay? So that's why it's a big balance. It's a big balance. Again, that comes down to the conversation about the trust, accountability, and ethics.
That's true.
What's your take on this, Mr. Liu, the data challenge?
Data is excellent, but it's very dangerous. Because in my opinion, that big data can be useful for entrepreneur, for the investor, for the authorities, not for the individual. The individual always at the position that of losing personal data. This is a big problem. As we know that some hotel chain that they lost their the data of the customers who stay in the hotel, millions of the people. So, and also from DD, they collect all the data that where to go, how to go, when to go, who went to somewhere. So all this big data, if be misused, that could be very dangerous at this order of this society. But we have to pay more attention to give more law guidelines to govern all these activities of this data use and application. How to safeguard this data by technically and also by morally. And the third is a social law system. All these three factors can govern this data application. Otherwise, the data could be very, very dangerous for the social society.
So we've been talking
powerful.
Yes. So we're talking about so many obstacles and challenges. What is the way out? Is there a model for the sharing economy to actually being creative and being socially responsible at the same time, Mr. Liu?
I think so, yes. First, by law system, we should enforce all these law guidelines to all these potential investors and potential entrepreneurs to know that the basic line and the bottom line of these activities. And the second, also tell the social customers that to know the risky behind it. We cannot always tell the benefits that they are facing. We should tell them what's the risky. And the third, also tell the market, to regulate the market. We cannot sit in the office to see the booming or glooming this business. We should do it in advance, not always behind it. All these 3 points, I think, should be enforced together. The sharing economy could be modified and improved.
What's your take, Mr. Hao?
I think this is a big question, right? The regulators probably have to do a better job. At the same time, they have to be very careful not to intervene too much. You need to give a huge space for entrepreneurs, right, to explore the latest technology. At the same time, the regulator need to do something to make sure the ethics standard are being enforced, are being held up. They need to give the rewards to the ethical entrepreneurs. Okay, they need to punish the people who act out of the line. Okay, and I think that's a regulator's job. But that's a demand regulator to be much more vigilant. They really need to know the technology. You cannot enforce the old law. Okay, that may have really bad unintended consequences. They have to really stay on the edge. They have to forecast, predict certain things. At the same time, give the space to the technology innovators.
And now let's be a little bit specific. So having said that, what do you think would be some shining sectors in the sharing economy in the years to come? So the shared bikes has failed, at least temporarily. But what about car sharing? Or what about some portable battery chargers sharing?
Well, I think the portable battery charger is already in trouble too. Okay,
right.
That's no longer that popular anymore. I guess the driverless cars, that may be the next huge area. Okay, this is going to come. Okay, just a matter of time. The driverless cars. But right now, people think, well, it's unthinkable. But with the breakthrough in technology, driverless cars are supposed to be safer. Okay, it will still have accidents. Okay, but it will be safer. Just think about how many people died over the cars in these days. Okay, the driverless car will be safer. But how the law should be developed, how the ethics should be developed, how the regulators should be really stay on top of technology will be a big task. Whoever do that better, is going to prevail.
And to talk about whether driverless cars is a hype or not, the biggest business appeal from this industry is that it actually can raise a social productivity. Do you think that's the case, Mr. Liu?
Yes, I think so. But actually, we have to pay more attention to other sides, as Professor He said. For instance, the sharing economy has another point. If we do it in accordance to the law and the real situation, that there's a shining side of this economy. First, we should not let it freely expand it too much. Always put it in a cage, in a necessary cage, not too big, not too small. And the second is always another guidelines, and no more deposit in such business. So it could be more safe for the society. And the third, also, in my opinion, we should still remain to keep this bike and the car sharing economy, because this is a good solution to solve the question of the last mile of the difficulty. Is convenient to the people that in the public or private people that. So this, we should keep the good things, and to eliminate the wrong thing and the negative thing. That I think the sharing economy will be still welcomed by the people here. This is our strong point to the world. We are proud of to say to the whole world that we are very good sharing economy. But the sharing economy should become a sharing system that could be more positive for the China's future.
Yeah.
So having said that, being specific, what do you think would be the next shining sector in the sharing economy?
I think in medical or education sector, because medical sector is more welcomed by the Asian people. We are coming to the Asian society. Many investors are already looking at it very closely and critically to the field. They are trying to make more software and to give more sharing.
But how does that work? The word sharing, how does that work in medical or nursing homes?
Okay, if we have some nurseries from outside or inside in domestic market, we can also share to the other society to provide all these nurses, and also the so-called the treatment experiences, not only for China, from this hotel or this city, but also to other cities. We can share all these experiences and technologies. And of course, from the education, it's similar the things that from the children and from the middle school, they can share all these technologies and textbooks and experiences. I hope these new factors in the new year to come could be more organized in a legal way.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for input. And that's it for this edition of Dialogue on CGTN. I'm Pan Dong in Beijing. Bye-bye.